Hello, this is Priscilla Rice, and I'm coming to you from Live Oak Recording Studio. This week, we're going to have a rebroadcast of one of our earlier classic podcasts. We hope you enjoy it, and thanks so much for listening. Episode number 695, Finding the Good in Bad Times.
You're listening to the official BNI podcast with BNI founder and Chief Visionary Officer, Dr. Ivan Misner. Stay tuned for networking and referral marketing tips from the man who's been called the father of modern networking, along with suggestions and insights into getting the most from your membership in the world's largest networking organization, BNI.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the official BNI podcast. I'm Priscilla Rice, and I'm coming to you from Live Oak Recording Studio in Berkeley, California, and I'm joined on the phone today by the founder and the Chief Visionary Officer of BNI, Dr. Ivan Misner. Hello, Ivan. How are you, and where are you?
I have recently been to BNI Mid-America, which is the central part of the United States, where I did a large online event. So still visiting regions all around the world.
Oh, that's great. Well, tell us a little bit about this topic.
Yeah, well, as you might suspect, I came up with this content because of 2020, the year 2020. And it's all about really looking for the good in a bad situation. I ended 2020 with a humorous graphic on my social media that said this. It said, "Dear 2021, I don't want any trouble from you. Just come in, sit in the corner, don't touch anything, and keep your mouth shut."
That's great.
That was I thought it was pretty pithy and kind of funny. But there's an important flip side to this sentiment. And that flip side begs the question, what did we personally learn from 2020? And I think that's an important question to consider. Complaining about things that go horribly wrong is easy. Finding the positive in difficult situations is not. And I believe that finding the gems in life is the best way to move forward successfully. I learned a great deal from 2020, and I have a lot of valuable takeaways for me out of 2020. And here are 7 takeaways that I got from last year. One, and I've talked about this in the podcast, so I won't go into much detail, and that is microdose the news. I learned that to get what I need to know from news apps and not to obsess about the problems by watching the news hour after hour. Negative news sells, and the media has become a master of sharing negative news. Technically, I think it's opinions much more than actual news, but they become a master of it. 2, a really valuable lesson I observed involved a man that told me that he was able to keep his job, and I think I may have mentioned this in a podcast, but that he had to work from home, and he also needed to care for his children and help them do their schoolwork. And he told me he was really stressed out about doing that double duty. And during our conversation, he came to the realization that this was actually an opportunity to spend much more time with his children. And although it was challenging, it might be a good time period where they all look back with fondness because of the experience they had together. And when he embraced that idea, his vision of the situation completely changed. And that was a lesson that I hope that many others with children experienced. Third is I witnessed focus beating out fear. And I know I talked about this in podcasts and a lot of my writings. Focus beat out fear during 2020 for many entrepreneurs. When people are frozen by fear, they had no hope. But when that fear focused them, they had hope, and they were much more likely to weather the storm. Hope is more powerful than fear. Hope is that little voice inside you whispering to you about what can be when everyone around you is screaming what can't be. Hope plus a plan plus action will lead you successfully through challenges. Fourth, I learned that during difficult times, your network will be there for you. I saw people support each other emotionally and professionally. I witnessed people give one another ideas that kept their business alive and thriving. 2 of the best examples included the furniture reupholstery shop that became a COVID mask manufacturing company with all of the material they had, and a brewery that became a COVID hand sanitizer company with the alcohol that they had for the brewery. 5, I learned that if you wait until tough times are over, your business will be over. During difficult times, you need your network more than ever. You need BNI more than ever. Social distancing is the wrong phrase. Physical distancing is what's necessary at this time, and hopefully this will change this year. We need to be more social than ever, though. And I saw successful businesses activate their network and not abandon their network. 6, I learned that I could travel the world without getting on a plane. I love that. I have 2.3 million miles on one airline alone. And it was a gift to be able to spend months with my wife at home last year, particularly last year. It was the longest period of time that we had together in our 31 years of marriage, and I'll forever be thankful for that. 7, I learned that friends are more important than ever, that the quality of the people in your life, or in your room, as I called it in one of my books, will determine the quality of your life. And the quality of the people determine the quality of your life. For me, that last lesson was profound. It was a tough year for me, as it was for many people. But I came out of 2020 with a clearer vision of who my friends are. And I understand who truly cares about me as an individual and as a person as a result of 2020. It was something that I learned. And I will forever be grateful for that. So I suggest that if you're listening to this podcast, you don't completely write off 2020 and erase the year from your memory banks. Instead, I suggest that you consider what you learned from last year and what your positive takeaways are from that experience. You'll be a better person for it. So, what are your takeaways from 2020? What was something positive that you learned or took away from the most challenging year in recent history? Give some thought to this question and write down your observations here on this podcast. I'd love to read the things that you come up with that were takeaways for you in 2020, positive takeaways. It's easy to come up with the negative ones. We all have a big list. Just watch the news. The positive things that you came out of with 2020. And I believe that reflecting on this, that kind of reflection will help you recognize the good that took place during one of the toughest years on record. And so, Priscilla, I want to put you on the spot here. What good came out of this for you? Anything pop to mind?
Well, I have to go along with what you said in terms of how people were really there for each other. And I saw that in my BNI group. I saw that in our next door neighbors group. There's an online next door group that you can be a part of. I saw people helping each other through that. And then, just in my own circle, people being extremely kind and loving, even though we were maybe had to be on Zoom or whatever. And that's a fun thing, being on Zoom with your friends and having birthday parties on Zoom and being able to connect all over the country and pull in your friends and your family to situations that before you would never think of doing that.
Right.
And so that was something really positive.
Yeah, listen, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And so if you're listening to this podcast, I'd like to ask you to do what Priscilla just did and name a few things that were positive that came out of 2020. Because if all we do is look at how bad 2020 was, and listen, it was bad for all of us. It certainly was for me. I lost my wife last year. And so it was tough on all of us. It's still good to reflect on what we got out of 2020 moving forward. And I think that's the best way to be successful in life. So thanks for your suggestions, Priscilla.
Yeah, it's so nice to look at the positive. I always try to do that.
Yeah, as do I, because it's so easy. We live in such a negative world that it's so easy to just obsess about the problems and challenges. But generally, the people I've met in life who are really successful tend to be, not everyone, but they tend to be a lot more positive and look for a positive future as opposed to obsess about a negative past. So that's everything I've got for today. Priscilla, everyone, make sure and post your comments. I promise you I will read them all. Thank you very much. Back to you, Priscilla.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much, Ivan. Really, really love this podcast. So that's it for this week. The sponsor for this podcast is Ivan's Inner Circle. Go check out the great content available at www.ivansinnercircle.com, where Ivan has assembled a variety of interesting topics for you to learn about and also to participate in. So thank you so much for listening. This is Priscilla Rice, and we look forward to having you join us again next week for another exciting episode of the official BNI podcast.